Hello, welcome to another episode of Hyderabad Dialogues. Today we have Mr. Ronak Kumar Samantray, who is the founder of three leading startups, and that the one that he's currently leading deals with space tech and satellites. So my first question to you is why and how did you get into satellites and space tech? How did your journey begin in this?
Sure. Thank you, Ramya, for this opportunity, first of all. The first startup got acquired by Reliance in 2019. And of course, I was looking at, what kind of problem statement should I look at next, right? And space definitely caught my attention because I truly believe that as humans, we are definitely going to become spacefaring species, right? That is given. Now, an interesting trend that is happening in space, if you look at the launch cost, back in the day, that used to cost $1 million per kg, came down to $45,000 per kg with Falcon 1, came down to $6,600 per kg with Falcon 9. It is projected to go down to $600 per kg with Starship, right? So if the rocket cost is reducing so much, the rocket exists to put satellites in orbit, right? So hence I was very keen that, okay, what can we do with satellites? And that's how I sort of got intrigued by the satellite industry. That was my sort of stepping stone towards it. And if you look at, when I looked at the satellite industry, the entire industry just does, 95% of the industry is Earth observation. Like you put cameras in orbit, you click pictures and download those pictures, right? And you have communication, right? Like our INSAT satellite or Starlink from that sake, right? So there are various models for communication happening. They're the two sectors that primarily happen. And the customers mostly are defense, the GIS industry and stuff. So that's why I was looking at, okay, what different can we do? Because if the launch cost comes down so much, new business models will evolve, right? And I have a bias for being a computer science guy because I've been a coder throughout. For me, the satellite, when I was looking at, like, sort of as an engineer, I was looking at it, it looked like a computer, right? It is nothing but an electronic object, right? Which has a computing capacity, it has a power generating capacity, and it has certain sensors around it, which is nothing but a computer, right? So if you could put an array of computers in space at a very low cost, what are the new business models that can evolve? So that was the whole journey that I started with, right? I definitely didn't have idea what I'm doing now, that, okay, that is exactly the problem statement I'm going to solve. That sort of, as a founder, you discover the problem statement. What you sort of decide is, kacha, mereko na is domain mein kaam karna hai. Is Hindi fine in between? Yeah. So you, as a founder, what you sort of initially do is you figure out what domain to work on, and the problem statement itself appears in front of you. So that was improvised. So I started, as an engineer, I'd made some capital. I know how to write code. So what do? You start building. I love building stuff with my own hands, right? So if I'm doing satellite, I want whichever business I'm getting into, the core IP needs to be built with my own hands because I need to have control on it. I just don't like working with somebody else or outsourcing it to somebody and then building their IP. Then the core of the company has to be in your control, right? So I started building a satellite. So literally everything that we do was built from my house in Gandipet, right? Today, in fact, even the satellite assembly, there's a clean room in my house. So my guest room, we dismantled it, media room, sorry. My media room, we dismantled it and made a clean room there. It's a classic.
Your daughter helping you.
Yes. That's why my satellite is called MOI1, MOI2, because my daughter is Moira.
So it's named after your daughter.
Well, I used ChatGPT for that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my daughter is Moira. This is what I'm doing. What should my satellites be called? So hence the name, my orbital infrastructure sort of emerged.
But what goes into building a satellite? You studied computer science. You got into this. But what goes into it? I mean, you need to, for a satellite, since you are saying that you will send it into space, you need to have a camera. I mean, what kind of resolution camera should be there? I mean, this is not an easy thing.
Camera is just one aspect, right? Like,
It's a small aspect, but what I'm saying is that you have so many ingredients in components.
True. Honestly, I didn't know all this, right? I had no clue what goes in, and I think that helped me because I definitely did not know the complexity of what I'm getting into. So definitely was easy to get in. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be stupid, right? That is, stupidity is very, very important because if you're very knowledgeable, you won't attempt such a problem statement, right? And I was stupid in the beginning. Right? The second aspect is you have to be an engineer in your head, right? End of the day, it is a problem statement that requires a logical mindset to solve. Yes, there's a ton of maths, there's a ton of science, there's a ton of mechanical engineering, material science, everything. So space is one area. If you look at it, it's a segment that we have never been there, right? None of us have been to space ever. It is all in our imagination. we have seen pictures, we have research paper. It's just in imagination, right? So that is what fundamentally makes it hard. And there is no right answer. When you read a research paper, let's say orientation control of a satellite, ki satellite ko tilt kaise karoge aap? There are 10,000s of research papers, and nobody tells you what is the right answer. ISRO has a certain way of doing it. ESA has a certain way of doing it. NASA has a certain way of doing it. Everybody has their own different ways of doing it. When it comes to radiation shielding, you would have heard of solar flares and all that. There is radiation hardened chips, there is radiation tolerant. There are 3 different ways of shielding your electronic components from radiation, right? So there is no right and wrong answer. It's absolutely rabbit hole. Because again, nobody has been there. Everybody has tried, kaam kiya to theek hai, nahi kaam kiya to it's a failure. It's a learning, right? So yeah, that is how this industry works. And that is what makes it difficult, right? But I think I had an advantage that I had made some exit. So I had some capital, my own capital. I didn't have to go to somebody and say that, hey, I want to work on this. I had no clue, give me money, right? Nobody's going to trust me with that. So I had my own sort of capital to do experimentation on. But I had a logical direction, right? Hey, end of the day, I need to build a satellite which needs to sort of enable computing, right, in orbit. And yeah, so that's how I started building it. And slowly I discovered the nuances of this business. But yeah, so now we are at a stage after 4 years, like I started working on this since 2020, right? And we are at a stage where we have indigenized all satellite hardware. And that is exactly what drives my revenue today. All the satellite components that we have developed, that is what the other satellite companies buy it from us.
You don't import anything from outside.
No. Except what we haven't built is solar cell, propulsion, and camera. Except for that, every satellite subsystem is built by us, designed by us, manufactured in Hyderabad. So yeah, and that becomes a differentiator, right? Now, because I'm not buying anything, I'm not paying anybody else, I'm vertically integrated, the price is in my control. And that benefit goes to the customer, right? The customer now gets a solution at much more affordable prices than me sort of buying like typically, if you look at most of the space startups globally, when they do their first launch, they would buy a satellite bus, right? So they will, let's say you are innovating in the water, you will buy the glass. Nobody builds the glass. But I decided, no, will build the full stack, right? Okay. So yeah, so that sort of became a differentiator today as well.
See, what caught my eye was that you said for $2 you can get something. I mean,
yes,
take me to space.
$2 a minute. Yes,
$2 a minute. That was the headline that we gave. In fact, I mean, is it even feasible? I mean,
it is, and that happens as I told you. There's 2 things, right? A, the launch costs have fundamentally come down. B, we have all the systems that is powering a satellite is our zone, right? So literally, the first satellite they were putting in, if you go ahead and buy that, buy that form factor subsystem, it'll cost you 3 CR, right? For me, it cost me 50 lakhs, out of which 25 lakh is just solar cells, which I buy, right? So the rest 25 lakhs, everything is built in house, right? So that is how much cost reduction I have done in terms of capex.
Actually import something like what you said, the bus.
Yeah, it'll cost you 3 CR. Easily it'll cost you 3 CR, right? And we brought it down to whatever, 25 lakhs, 50 lakhs including solar cells, right? So it costs you just 50 lakh rupees.
So to make the entire satellite, it will be less than 1 crore.
50 lakhs.
50 lakhs, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. To launch a satellite, we're spending 2 CR.
That's different. Because you have to
pay to the rocket guys, right? So yeah, to build the satellite and that is our biggest advantage today, right?
I mean, if I interject, how much does it cost to, say, for example, somebody in America, for them to make a satellite compared to what you are saying now?
So, okay, the reason the prices are high is not because the manufacturing cost is actually, that's what I discovered, right? So when I was doing my analysis, okay, if I'm building a satellite, the other systems I have to buy, the cost is high. But then if you look at the components, they're just normal electronic components, right? The reason the costs are high is because the way the industry is structured. Now, let's say you're building a satellite subsystem. How many people are there who are going to buy that, right? Maybe 1,000 based on right? So if your TAM is small, your average revenue, your price has to be higher, right? So that you're running a company, for heaven's sake, right? That is the reason why the prices are high, because the market is very small. Not everybody is building those components, but which is changing now, right? Now, if you look at a lot of other startups coming in, like in India, you have Hex20. In Hyderabad, you have XD-Links, who are already building satellite bus in India, right? Because again, the trend is the same. The rocket costs are going drastically down. The number of satellite today is around 25,000, right? Out of which 50% is owned by one company. But that 25,000, what is projected is there'll be 150,000 satellites over the next 10 years, right? So it is, if now the market is expanding, right? So the costs are also coming down. So, but we got on the journey at the right time. When the industry was just opening up, we got in the thing at the right time. Like India launched its space policy in 2020. Today, we are at a stage where almost every country in the world has a space policy. Australia also has a space policy. Every country has a space policy now. right? We helped Bhutan sat. Bhutan wanted to do a satellite of their own. So space is the new sector that everybody is eyeing for. That is creating the demand. So the number of customers going up, and hence the costs are coming down. So what we have done today definitely is a differentiator. But 5 years down the line, everybody would be doing the same, right? The point is, you can't build a business today just out of satellite hardware. What do you do out of it? Of course, we got here, which is our differentiator today, but is only going to last for the next 5 years. So our key is that, hey, how do I monetize the whole AI lab in space now? Right? We are able to give the customers that front, but can we also prove, as you said, $2 per minute, right? So our model was, and okay, I'll tell you a backstory, right? When I started building a satellite, my thing was, chalo, satellite bana rahe ho. Like when I was growing up, right? Did you go to a computer science lab ever? School mein, hai na? So when you go to a computer lab, you write the Hello World program, you write the star wala program, recursive, and that blew my mind, right? Like, and that's how I fell in love with computers, right? In satellite, that doesn't exist. Today, if your child wants to just do a basic, want to use the satellite to click picture of a volcano eruption or eye of the storm, you cannot. Even if you pay money, because you are just trying to click one picture. No, you can buy a picture from a satellite operator, but nobody's going to give you access to a satellite.
But it is freely available on ISRO website.
It is available with professors, but then it's like me telling you, "Aapko hello world likhna hai. This is how." Let's say you want to write a code to print Indian Express. This is how it look like. Going to the printing facilities, printing the paper yourself is a different experience than seeing the output. Today, the entire industry is based on seeing the output. They don't know how the printing machine works. My plan is to give people access to the printing machine itself and see how the printing works. And then you decide what you want to print. Right? Don't just look at the paper and the printed fonts. Understand how the printing works. Control the printed. So I'm basically selling a printing machine for time. आप decide को क्या print करना है. I built a printing machine. Pay me $2 per minute. आप printing machine का use करो.
Whatever data, the images, how would be the resolution?
Exactly, great question, right? Because then the privacy laws comes into the picture, right? If you let everybody access your satellite, then what about the privacy? So we operate at 9 meter per pixel, the resolution, which does not compromise privacy laws of any country. So those are the conscious decisions we have taken in our business model that, hey, our hardware should not violate any, because our philosophy is everybody should be able to use it and use it for whatever they want. So at a hardware level, the cameras you're putting are at a resolution that you can't see human beings. You can't see trucks and all that. You can only see, let's say, like 9 meter is one dot in the picture, right? So no privacy gets compromised there. So that's one. Second, if you look at, we don't have a propulsion in my satellite. Because let's say you are controlling my satellite and you hack the systems and you go and bump into somebody else, right? You go and bump into ISS. It's a huge penalty, right? So we don't have propulsion. So security comes first. Like, see, when you give people access, we are accountable for it. So we need to be you have to give access in a very accountable fashion, right? And that is something we have been working, we're very cautious about things. Ki, hey, even if we get hacked, nothing malicious can be done with a satellite. Even if there is somebody who has a militia, they can't do anything with a satellite with that. So we are trading the waters very step by step, so that as we build this business, our true motto of giving access to everyone remains true, and yet it should not compromise anybody's laws and regulations of any country, right? Because you have to be a global player. You can't just be an Indian player, right? You want to build this out of India, but you want to be a global player. But then, and hence it's important that using a satellite, no country's law should get violated.
But can you please elaborate further on how it can be useful for anybody, for a student, for somebody who is an amateur astronomer who wants to study astronomy or any other applications?
Absolutely. So if you look at today, there is one common trend that is happening is AI, right? That is changing the way people do things in life, right? So that is given. And that's why we are AI lab and AI first, right? So if you are a researcher or you are a student or you are a GIS industry or you are a large FMCG company, you want to analyze certain area of land. Today, what do? You have to buy as you said, you go to the ISRO, so any EO company's website or a government EO's website, download the pictures. If it is old picture, it might be free. If it is latest pictures, it is paid, right? And everybody charges per square kilometer, right? You pay for the data. Now imagine you have to do it for every day you want to do the analysis. You pay for the data. जबकि आपको analyze करना है कि भैया how has the forest grown over time? Why do you need pictures for that? You can just download the vegetation index for it. right? And that is the disruption we're bringing, right? Ki, hey, our satellites are not optimized. We are not a EO company. We are not a Earth observation company. Our satellites are not optimized to download images. Like my downlink bandwidth is very small. My download speed is very small because what I expect my customers to focus on is that you use you capture the data using the camera, do the processing, only download the results, right? So because that's where again the cost gets optimized and the cost of inferencing is also low. Because today what happens when you're downloading, let's say like one picture is 1 GB, right? Now when you're downloading terabytes of data, somebody's paying for the cost, then somebody's paying for the analysis, and then you get the results. So the end customer has to pay for the entire value chain, right? But in our case, what you're saying that, hey, as a customer, just download the results and pay me for the time, whatever you do it, and do everything here.
How does someone communicate with the thing, right? Ask it to do some data processing.
So we have a web dashboard. You log into the web dashboard. You sort of upload your, we call it AOI's, area of interest. So let's say you want to do monitor Hyderabad, right? So you upload the Hyderabad ka area of interest, whatever area of interest you have. You sort of make it. You have to write your code. You have to be a coder. Today we have not made it a low code editor because our step is that we want to target people who know code first, and then we will sort of make it easier further down the line. So yeah, so you write the AI application which can take the image and do image processing, upload the image, upload the AI model, give your what do you call AOI, and say submit. Behind the scene, we run it on a digital twin, and then we upload it via the ground station to the satellite. And the satellite is configured that, okay, whenever it's configured that at this timestamp, at this lat long, at this latitude, longitude, whenever you are trigger this application, do the processing and download the data. So the entire uplinking to the satellite tasking and downlinking is what is automated for the user. So yeah, so user doesn't have to learn all these steps, and there's no human intervention also. So that is what takes a lot of engineering bandwidth.
Initially, at least amateurs might not be that interested because you have to code and you get the data. So it must be
now easy.
Exactly. So guess what? So when we did the MOITD mission, right? Of course, one of our customers was University of Southern Malaysia. But guess who the second customer was? Class 9 students from Chandigarh. Class 9 students from Chandigarh. They wrote a basic code to they wanted to figure how much UV hits our upper atmosphere. Because we know, if you put a UV sensor here, you know how much UV you receive on Earth. We all know that ozone thing filters out UV. But you don't know how much actually hits Earth. How do you find that data? Of course, you can do research, but that's a basic code, right? You just like a Raspberry Pi coding or a IoT coding, also somebody subsect there, right? That coding, and that is what satellite is nothing but a computer attached to sensors. That code every child knows today. So they wrote that code and uploaded that code. So that was class 9. There was this, the second group of students was in Rajasthan, right? Again, they're school students. They wanted to monitor how does the temperature change? Because if you look at, satellite gives a very interesting profile, right? This is Earth. For one orbit is 90 minutes, right? So 60 minutes you have sunlight, 30 minutes of darkness. So when you're in sunlight, you are at plus 85 degree. When you're in darkness, you're at sunlight minus 60, right? That is how drastically the temperature changes. They wanted to just see the temperature change graph, right? Now for a child, it's like the hello world code, right? For the child to able to write a code, upload to a satellite and task a satellite do this is a, yeah.
Did they know about your startup?
They've thought through the, I mean, it's organic thing. So for me, most of the marketing happens through Reddit. So, yeah. So I keep, because that's where all the geeks are. Not on Instagram, right? Yeah. Not on Facebook. All the geeks are on Reddit. So most of my customers initially came from Reddit, right? I would keep posting, this is what you're working on, this is what. If you look at our LinkedIn page, it will be mostly about our work. All the failed experiments also we posted on LinkedIn. And if you follow me on Reddit, which I'm not going to tell you my user ID, it's usually anonymous. So yeah, on Reddit is where we found all the customers.
So we can also, if somebody, say for instance, you see on Twitter so much talk about the UFOs, this, that. So if somebody wants to gather information.
Why not? You can turn the camera towards the space, right? Instead of, today the camera is turning towards Earth. You turn it outside.
So you can turn it towards the moon or towards the Earth.
You can. See, that is the human creativity. You give access to the asset and let people figure out what they want to do with it. You don't tell ki ye asset isko aise use karo. That is a very old school thought process. And look at, today we are carrying a computers in our hand. This has happened because nobody told us this is how you should use computers. People gave us access to computers when you were growing up in school, in colleges, in office. You have so many computers lying down here. Nobody tells ki isko aise use karo. Ye button tabhi, matlab, is time pe yahi button dabane ka hai. People are creative enough. Like storytelling. You guys are great storytellers, right? Nobody mandates कि आपको story ऐसे ही लिखना है. There is a construct, but you are creative enough to decide मेरे को क्या story लिखने का है. Right? It's not predefined. That's how creativity flows. In this humans, you can't box human beings' creativity.
So in this sector, now you came up with this idea. Are there any other competitors with the same idea? I mean,
Yeah,
who are
so-
doing it. See, now that AI is coming up, many other competitors will be there. I mean, I'm sure.
Yes. So if you look at our businesses around building compute-focused, like whichever requires compute in orbit, right? Now, if you extend it, that's nothing but a play of when the costs really go down, that becomes a data center itself. So our eventual goal, if you go to our website, we are building data centers in space, right? Because that's hypothesis. So in compute-wise, we have companies like Lumen Orbit, which is Star Cloud. There's companies in US, there's companies in Europe. There's one company, I think, in Australia. So there are a lot of few startups, I would say like 5 or 6 other startups who are also attempting the same problem statement. Second, European Space Agency also gave out a $2 million euros ka ek, study they funded to explore the viability of data centers in space. Again, ESA has this program called FISAT, right? Where they encourage industries to run AI models in the satellite itself instead of downloading the data and then doing AI processing, right? And with that, a lot of innovations come out. Airbus created a new algorithm for cloud detection and stuff like that, right? So a lot of new AI models were space proven, right? So yeah, so there has been initiatives by the government and by this thing, but now is the time where startups are trying to do it as a commercial business. That's happening over the last 5 years.
About the data centers in space. Now, if you want to have a data center here, I mean, on this planet, I mean, it will cost a lot. I mean, you need lots of electricity, lots of power, this. Is it even feasible in space to have a data center?
You answered my question, right?
You are the expert.
No, you answered it because exactly what you're saying. See, okay, one common trend, right? आपने सुना होगा कि Delhi में the temperatures have been going up. So our summers are becoming crazy. Winters are becoming more colder. Rainy season unpredictable because of the global change and whatever you have done to planet Earth, right? So the cost of it is not the chips are becoming costly. Of course, that because the same chip you are taking to orbit. So whether you build data center on Earth or whether you build data center in space, the cost of the hardware is the same. But the cost of the environment is fundamentally different. Space as an environment gives you unlimited free energy for a lifetime. For the next 1 billion years, the sun is going to give you the same amount of energy for the next 1 billion years. It's not going to change. There is no pollution happening. There is no humans who patthar maar raha aapke solar panel pe. Right? There is no storms and dust happening there. So there's no maintenance cost of your solar panels. Right? And second thing is, you get 30% more solar energy in orbit than on Earth because of the atmosphere filtering that happens on Earth. Right? It's called AM0 light source. So yeah, you get more power. You got more free and reliable power and clean power there. So that takes care of your incoming power requirement. Now, second is thermal cooling, right? Because all data centers spit out a lot of heat as well. So cost of running air conditioning is fundamentally going up. Last year, if you look at during summers, that every telco had to increase the recharge because running a base station cost went up. Because the air conditioning has to now run for longer hours. The heats are becoming crazy. In space, the space as an environment takes care of the thermal cooling. Right? There's no cost of cooling. So what happened, and that's my hypothesis, right? If you could put an array of computers for cheap in orbit at a lesser cost, as a lesser capex, the OPEX is the space as an environment gives you a lot of advantage in the operational cost, right? Terrestrially, there's a lot of operational cost, and that is what makes the data centers costly. If you look at any data center ka P&L, it will be revenue per watt. कि मैंने इतना because hardware का cost same है. मैंने इतना energy दिया उसे कितना revenue मिल रहा मेरे को, right? In space, the wattage is free. It's just the capex business, right? And that is why we started building everything ourselves because we wanted to minimize the capex part of things. See, rocket guys are taking care of the rocket launch cost. Our job is to ensure that the satellites are cheaper, right? And that is what the long-term play is. Whenever the industry gets to a $600 or $100 per kg, we should be the first ones to set up a data center in orbit. Today, the industry at $6,000, $6,000 to $10,000 per kg. It is not viable. That's why it is $2 per minute. Our aim is to get to $0.002 per minute. That is our aim. That's when we have a data center. Because as a user, you don't care whether the data center space mein hai, pani mein hai, earth mein hai, right? आपको cost से मतलब है, मेरा काम होना चाहिए, right? So you will evaluate me from a cost. So today, we need to get to a stage where I should be able to give you data center at lesser the cost of a terrestrial data center. That's when we have a data center business. And that's, yeah. So.
For instance, the student who from Punjab, right, who used it to calculate the UV. How
Correct.
long, means $2 per minute, how long did they need?
Okay, so if you look at data center eventual goal, right? Today, if you look at, I can't go to an ICICI bank or any bank, say that, okay, hey, or you guys, do your computing in orbit for $2 million, you'll like get lost. Because I'm 100x costlier than a typical data center on Earth, right? So what we are trying to monetize is a computer with a camera and orientation control. That is where the money is. And hence we are charging 100 times more, right? Now coming back to the student question which you asked, right? Now the student ran for one orbit, right? One orbit is 90 minutes, right? Usme UV, yeah, you can do UV 1 to 90 minutes. So 90 into $2. So $180 mein uska entire experiment done. Now even if you take that money, $180, nobody in this planet will give you access to the satellite for you to reprogram the satellite and download the data. Nobody on the planet is going to give you. We give you for $180. And that's a premium we're charging, right? Because that's a new use case we're creating. And that's where the money is today. And so we're trying to monetize a computer with a camera and, of course, orientation control. Eventually, as the launch cost goes down and down, we drop the camera. It only becomes a computer, and that's when it becomes a data center. But the game is the same. The engineering behind it is the same.
The solar cells and
So every satellite that you design, I mean, as of today, we are designing our satellites to work for at least 2 years, minimum 2 years, average 3 years, and maximum 5 years, right? Because we don't have propulsion. But eventually, electronics don't die, right? It is the propulsion that dies off, or some radiation happens and stuff like that. That is what kills your electronics. So it is a function of engineering that how do you expand the lifespan of your satellite? It's an engineering problem statement. And that's why if you look at the first sort of space mission we did with this launch partner was of course ISRO, was RSCM, right? Radiation shielding experiment module. Because we are in a solar maxima, a lot of, because our aim is that, see, if we take space grade hardware and put them in orbit, it is going to be super costly. And that's why NASA satellites are super costly. ISRO satellites are very costly because they take space grade electronics. If our eventual goal is to build data center, we cannot be taking space grade hardware. We have to take terrestrial grade hardware and make them work in orbit.
Is that
it's not feasible, right? So what do you do? So now let's say this is the water, right? And you know that, okay, this is the space grade water, but this is super costly, but this is your earth grade water, which will die in radiation, right? So instead of putting the red water, you put a shielding around it, right? And the shielding ensures that the radiation doesn't come in. And that was radiation shielding experiment, right? We developed a new coding. That's why I had to study material science for a year. So we developed so we are partnered with HCU, Hyderabad Central University, right? We went to the lab so many times. And yeah, so we developed this new material where in the satellite structure, you apply the paint, it reduces the radiation by 10x. So that increases the lifespan of a terrestrial grade electronics. So that was the first thing we proved, because reliability is a key problem, right? Again, all these things we're doing to ensure that our cost is in our control, right? So we did radiation shielding to ensure that our terrestrial grade electronics can still work in orbit.
More and more people in satellites. How costly real estate in space become? The space junk.
Great point. Now, if you look at, there's a different set of problems called space situational awareness and space debris management. There's a big push already. Like for example, in India we have Digantra, right, which is doing space situational awareness. They are trying to detect what the debris are. Even that 1 centimeter square debris or 10 centimeter square debris also they can detect, right? Now there are other companies like they recently partnered with the Japanese company called Astro Scale, right, which is solving that, okay, if there's a debris, I'll go and remove and burn it in atmosphere. So there is already innovations happening to ensure that there's a debris management and all that. It's like, see, back in the day when we used to use, when the roads were in India, right, there was no traffic lights. Now you have a traffic light system, you have a traffic police system. So those things will evolve in the industry. Today there is no strict guidelines. There's no traffic lights in space. Like what if 2 satellites are coming like this and there's a conjunction event, right? Who decides who's going to give way? The law is not defined yet, but very soon you will find those laws coming up. So law is a big deal in space. A lot of innovation happening in the law itself in the space.
But I never heard of 2 satellites colliding.
Yeah. Some Russian satellite and some other satellite, they collided into each other. Let's say you're 2 dead satellites, you don't have propulsion, then you will collide. You are moving at 7 kilometers per second. At that speed, even if a paint speck bumps into it, is as fast as a bullet, right? It's going to pierce through the satellite. So yeah, so it's a very common thing of, like, if you know, jab Chandrayaan 3 launch hota na, ISRO delayed the Chandrayaan 3 launch by 3 seconds, a few seconds they delayed. Because when they did the simulation, there was a conjunction event in the path of the rocket. So they delayed it by a few seconds and there was no conjunction. So it's called conjunction assessment, the conjunction of 2 satellites or in any 2 objects in orbit. right? Because at that speed, when you collide, it's a disaster.
What do you do to make it bulletproof?
We don't. We work with other companies who are solving their problem statement. उतना नहीं कर सकते because we solve the world hunger. No. And that's where this whole ecosystem play, right? It's not one person's play. Our focus is to be experts in compute, right? We are not a debris management company. We're not a space situational awareness company.
But this also involves learning. You are into material science. You need to know how to shape your satellite. A lot of it is involved.
I mean, it's engineering. It's engineering. It's like, okay, there's a 100 mega electron volt, 100 MeV mega electron volt, there's a proton and electron coming. How do you reduce the speed of that guy, right? So you have to have somebody who can, it's like a wall, right? If I shoot you with a bullet, you will die. But if there's a wall between us, the bullet will come slowly to you, assuming the wall can slow it down or stop it, right? So that's how do you do a wall? You look at the periodic table. There's something called a Z-index material. You look at every element in that thing, and you start thinking, okay, can this element be quoted here? What's the longevity? You do iteration. See, end of the day is an engineering problem statement. And I think when I went to the market to raise capital, that was the biggest question that I used to how are you? Why can you do it? अगर आप कर सकते हो बाकी सब भी कर सकते हैं. See, once people decide to solve a problem statement, you can solve it. The point is, half the people don't even 90% people don't even decide to solve the problem statement, right? It's the problem statement that is the beauty, not the answer, right? Once you have decided this is the problem statement I want to solve, answer अपने आप आ जाता है. The beauty lies in the problem statement, not in the answer. The fact that we are asking that question, I think, was more important than finding the answer. वो तो कोई भी कर लेगा.
Have you tied up with any other universities? I mean, those who do research.
We do. I mean, professors are very relevant. Like, for example, there is IIT Bombay, there is CBRE, right? Which is this Professor Surya. He's been 30 years into the GIS industry, right? So we keep using him as a mentor. There's Pichamani sir. So we have a lot of mentors we keep tapping into. See, you need mentors. It's like if you are trying to do something new, you don't want people to come and do things for you. That is outsourcing. That I don't believe in. What I believe in is having an array of mentors. Ki sir, मैंने ये किया, I'm stuck here. What should I do? They'll give you अच्छा ऐसा सोचो आप. Then I can come and redo the thing. So we have a good mentor. And mentors also like that, right? I don't go with the problem कि sir ये मुझे solve कर बताओ कैसे करना है. Right? It's like a student. A student has to do the homework and then go to the teacher. Then the teacher loves the student. कि चलो कुछ तो किया and then think like this. So I have a lot of teachers to help me.
You have already sent 2 satellites, right?
2, yes. Those were experimental satellites, so the 45-day mission satellites. So
how was it working with the ISRO?
Oh, it's brilliant. It is brilliant, right? Again, there's a body called InSpace, right? INSPACE. So InSpace is the body arm of ISRO, which helps you liaison. It's an arm between the NGEs, which is the non-government entities, and ISRO as a domain, right? So they make it super easy. There's a guy called Nikhil, the first payload that I built, I had no clue of this whole RS-85 protocol and how to interact with it. I had no clue. Right? I went for the testing, I had no clue. वो बंदा मेरे को बैठाया कि रोनक कैसे सोचो this. They're super helpful, right? Because they have done it for the last 30 years, 20 years, right? So they want to give you knowledge. And government has created a framework like that, right? Earlier, like if you directly approach a scientist, let's say अगर वो framework नहीं होता government का, right? If you approach a scientist will be like, अच्छा, should I help the person? Should I not help the person? Because see, space is also an asset of national security, right? Today, the government has created a framework so that the team in InSpace knows what they have to help the startups or they have to help the NGEs, right? So that framework has made it very easy. So none of the InSpace guys think twice before helping us. So that way, it's like pieces of the puzzle have fallen into the right place, touchwood, at the right time. Right? Thank God there was InSpace. Without InSpace, it would have been a nightmare. But it's like you finding the right scientist who wants to help you. Right? It would have been a nightmare to swim in the ocean, right? But yeah, because in space it becomes very easy. And then if they can't solve it, they connect you to some scientist who would solve it for you. And because it is coming from InSpace, the scientist in VSSC will trust it. कि चलो InSpace ने बोला मतलब there's a validation. कि I can answer it.
Space situation awareness, debris management, or there companies in Hyderabad or India?
Digantra is based in Bangalore. They are a LPU, lovely professional university passed out, the founders are. And they are doing space situational awareness. They started, I think, somewhere in 2020. Yeah, pretty cool guys.
I wanted to ask you, the MYTD satellite lab, it was also mentioned in the article. And also, because you launched it aboard ISRO's PSLV C60 mission, right? It's groundbreaking, but what what's the one technical hurdle that you faced?
A lot of technical hurdles, not one.
What's the major?
There's no major. Everything is a major problem. Because one thing fails, the entire thing fails, unfortunately, right? That's unfortunate. Because आप देखिए restart नहीं कर सकते उधर.
So how do you minimize that error, like sir? Just for us to understand this.
You test. And okay, so one is we as engineers we test, and then whenever you're launching this ISRO, they have this array of reviews that they have, right? They'll review a circuit, they'll review a problem statement, they'll review, and they have a predefined set of tests: the vibration test, shock test, EMIMC test, thermovac test. ISRO has designed a battery of tests, right? And that's how I learned. Like the first time when I did RSCM, MOITD, at least I had some knowledge, right? RSCM, when I went for the EMI, everything just failed. All the tests we failed. We had no clue, right? And that's when we went back at the how come we don't even know what is EMI? I had no, for the first time I heard the term EMIMC. I had no idea, right? Vimta Labs we went for the test, right? All my tests failed. Like, वो बंदा जो टेस्ट करता शुरू किया सर आपका टेस्ट फेल हो गया भाई अभी तो लाइक एक मिनट इट वाज अ 72 hour टेस्ट एक मिनट बोला फेल हो गया so yeah, it was fun that way. So yeah, we failed like so many times, and that's how we sort of made it work. So everything fails in MOITD, especially for example, because RSCM, the basic things we knew, right? In MOITD, the most challenging thing was, which we had to work very closely with, so the uplink protocol, like what you asked, how do you upload the data, right? Now, typically in this industry, you upload commands to a satellite. Like, okay, when the satellite passes over a ground station, this is the ground station the satellite is passing through, you get 5 minutes of communication time, right? Like this, because when it is at the horizon, you can't talk to it, right? It has to be at a certain elevation, and then you can send signals to the satellite and it disappears, right? You get 5 to 10 minutes of communication time. In that, you send commands to the satellite. So in the ground station, typically people send 10, 20, 30 commands, each command of 64 bytes or 100 bytes. We had to upload 10 megabytes because we are uploading applications, right? So we had to upload a full app, jo code banda nahi likha, right? The entire application has to upload it. So it's 10 megabytes, 20 megabytes, right? And usme, if one byte becomes noisy, the entire application will fail, right? Because you're uploading an application, not a image. Ek picture mein kya let's say 1 pixel gets corrupted, it is fine. You're fine with the picture. But in a code, 1 byte gets corrupted, the entire code is of no use, right? So that required a lot of iteration, and that was, I think, the biggest challenge for us was how to make the uplink protocol work. It not only required work from our side, thanks to ISRO, they put so much effort from their side because they had to, usually at ISRO's end, there's a ground station operator. He or she would upload, and I mean, they would decide from the director would decide if the commands to be sent in this pass. He or she would upload those commands manually, right? They had to now implement an automated protocol for it, right? Because we had because a human cannot be uploading 10,000 commands in one go, right? Hoga hi nahi, satellite chala jayega, right? So it has to be automated. So thanks to ISRO, they also put in efforts to automate that their end. So yeah, so ISRO, that was very, very helpful. There was a guy called Rishabh sir at ISTRAC. ISTRAC is the ground station of ISRO, right? So he created another version of the software and he automated that code. It was really cool that way. So that was, uplink was the biggest challenge. So because in AI lab in space, the AI application has to be uploaded. If I had preloaded the AI applications in orbit, then it's not an AI lab, right? In the lab, the student has to come in and then decide what to be done. They're not running pre-built programs. They're writing new programs, right? And that is the protocol we want to test before our main satellite goes up. So now in MOI-1, my main orbital satellite, we know, because we know what we have undergone, right? Usme kya galat hua, what other things can go wrong. So our protocol is very strong now. Like any 4G interference, any thunderstorms happening, missing packets. Aapne 10 packet bheja, 2 mila, 8 missing ho gaya, right? So all that protocol got very optimized during
You
the mission.
developed this AI
Ji.
I mean, based on what is available open source, or did you develop it on your own?
I'll answer 2 parts. What we did and what typically happens in our customer base, right? I'll start with the customers first. If you are building an AI application, the training of the AI model is usually done on open data sets, right? Because training requires a ton of data. And as you rightly said, you can go to ISRO's website, you can go to ESA's website, you can go to NASA's website, you can download existing images and train your AI model. Now, training an AI on the satellite is wrong, right? Because that's you have already so many open source data sets. Why would you pay money for that? So training of the AI model always happens on open source data sets. It's when you want to take it live, that's when our model comes in. So all our customers train it using a Bhunidhi, which is ISRO's thing, or a Copernicus, which is Europe thing, Bhunidhi or Copernicus. They build their AI model and then deploy it on our satellite. So we are a go live environment. Because आपने AI model बना लिया, उसको test कर लिया, उसके बाद then you deploy it and do only the analytics from it. Now coming to our side, we don't build AI. We enable AI execution. Right? So our challenge is, you might use PyTorch, you might use a different runtime, let's say ONNX, you might use a TF Lite as a environment. You might have different ways of writing AI. How do I create an environment for you so that everybody's AI model and their version should run on my satellite? That becomes a challenging environment. Today, if you look at, there are lots of satellite players who are also sending their edge compute. Edge compute ka naam, right? Edge compute enabled satellite. They will have cloud detection on that. Now those guys, those engineers know ki, okay, this is the hardware. They will custom write it for that hardware, and that hardware can only run this. It can't run some other runtime because it is programmed for that task, right? If you look at our challenges, how do we create an environment where any customer's AI model can run on a satellite, rather than telling the customer कि आपको AI model ऐसे ही लिखना है. So that is the engineering problem for us, engineering statement for us. So how do you containerize it? How do you sort of support multiple runtimes on the same hardware? It's like cloud versus on-premise, right? Today when you go to AWS or Azure or any cloud player, AWS doesn't tell you आपको code ऐसे लिखना है. You can write any kind of code and host it on AWS or Azure, right? But back in the day, on-premise, when you had certain servers managed, you had to follow certain protocol because of your hardware, customized. It was mission-specific hardware. So yeah.
How is your open access satellite infrastructure different from maybe an AWS or an Elon Musk's Starlink?
It is very different from Starlink, but it is no different from AWS. Okay. What AWS does, हम उसको space में करते हैं, वो ground पे करता है, हम space में करते हैं, कोई difference नहीं है, right? They are doing compute only. We are monetizing compute plus camera plus orientation control. That's the use case we are trying to go after. Because today I'm 100 times costlier than AWS. Right? No user is going to pay me money if I'm just giving compute and selling it at 100x cost. Right? That's a vanity factor then. Starlink is a communication satellite. They give you internet. They're not focused on computing. Right? Our thing is computing. Right? They give you internet. So yeah, we are AWS in orbit. Abhi 21.
Initially, you said you were new to this.
Yeah.
And you didn't know much about it, but you had to convince others, bright people to join you. What did you do apart from the capital?
How do you?
Apart from the capital, how did you convince them to join?
No, I never show capital. So when I convince people, I don't, because the moment capital gets involved, humans' nature changes. Okay. So, never deal with humans and capitals. I never discuss a capital discussion, right? What has worked for me is, whenever I meet somebody, I will tell them my entire idea. This is what I'm working on. This is what my future strategies are. So I try to monetize trust. I put the trust on the table first. Then the other person has no choice to trust me. To trust me. So yeah, you put the trust on the table, and you hope that the other person is also going to trust you. And that's how you sort of convince people. You be transparent to people, and then people sort of start trusting you. And you put trust on the table and you back it up with homework, right? So because I'm an engineer, I would always go, okay, this is my problem. This is what I've done. I'm not selling you a dream. Of course, I'm selling you a dream, but I'm also backing it up with my work and that baby work, what I've done, right? So I'm also backing up with that. So you put trust and you show your work. People get convinced.
Some of the specializations, what do the people write?
Oh. Like my head of products, Sharath, he's a super cool guy in mechanical engineering, right? Like when he designs an object, he thinks about manufacturing things, about assembly, about disassembly, everything into consideration when he designs a product. That's Firoz. Firoz has been a guy in the Hyderabad ecosystem who's known for SPM, special purpose machines. Like people would call him when nobody else can build that machine or fix that machine. He has been a freelancer since after college. Right? And he has a huge vendor network access. Like, because the fundamental issue space is, we will manufacture 1 or 2 satellites in a year. Which vendor in Balnagar is going to give me capacity? Unko chahiye ki aap 10,000 piece banao, 1 lakh piece banao. That's when the Balnagar guys will talk to you. But because of him, access to manufacturing was never a challenge for us. He knows the entire vendor ecosystem. Because back in the day, he would have gone and helped the vendor somewhere. Uska machine nahi kaam karta, Firoz would have gone and fixed it. Right? So he has his trust in the ecosystem. So that's Firoz. There is Anand. Anand was the CEO of T-Works. He knows how to work with the government. He has, he has run sort of large organization. He was and that too a makers organization. T-Works was a manufacturing facility, right? A makers facility. So he comes in the mindset. So he heads our business. So yeah, so different aspects of it. Then we have a Now we have a physical science team where there's a girl who's so cool in maths. There's a PhD guy who was doing PhD on black holes. Still was studying on black holes. Then there's a 20. So my entire avionics, my circuit is done by a 22-year-old boy, right? Because he's super passionate, right? And he started with just doing basic. Now he does FPGA. He does super complex avionics as well. So none of us have experience in the work we are doing today, but all of us have a passion to do what we are doing today. Our passions back it up, and that's what happens. We are more engineers than researchers. Research is good, research is great, but we don't believe in sit down, plan, research, and then attempt, right? We build, we fail, we build, we iterate, we fail, and then we succeed. We execute very fast. And that's been our motto, just start building things, right? And that's why we have been building like more than 15 satellite subsystems we have built in a matter of so many less years. Others people are very worried. They make a system, ek saal mein ek baar banayenge. Because it takes time to do research, it takes time to do simulation, it takes time to do the maths.
So government helps you with interface with the government, right? Apart from in-space ISRO, what do you have to deal with the government?
The government was his experience, but today he's got with the entire GIS industry. If you know how to deal with government, you know how to deal with enterprise customers.
So you have to deal with the government apart from in-space ISRO sending.
No, great thing is at least in India, according to the space policy, you do not have to interact with the government unless you are trying to operate a satellite in orbit. So our space policy in India allows you to build a space hardware, sell the space hardware to anybody you want without government intervention. You don't have to take any permission from the government. It's only when you're launching a satellite or operating satellite, that's when you need permission. So yeah, our interface to government is like, for example, when you're going to launch with ISRO, or now that we're launching MOI-1, right? So the communication license, the operator license, all that we have to interface with the government. The second aspect of government is the customer, right? The defense. So there's programs like IDEX and stuff where you have to, and there's a great, again, all this has happened over the last few years, right? There's a program called IDEX. Now you do not have to know people in the defense. What are the defense needs? It's out there in the portal. You go, you download the problem statements and you apply for the problem statement. And then there is an interview committee and all that stuff. And it's very streamlined, right? The whole back thing of main isko janta hu, usko janta hu, that doesn't have to happen. An outsider like me can still come in, and if you have an idea, you can start working with the government. So it has not become the easiest, but it is becoming easier every year. That is for sure.
See, before this, you started 2 startups, right?
Now floats.
Now, how difficult is it to found a startup?
You have to be stupid to find a startup. It is not difficult. It's not about difficult at all. Because in reality, it is super difficult.
As an extension to the government, as an extension to the question he asked, in dealing with the government.
Oh, like that. I mean, government...
Because notoriously, whether we like it or not, the fact is that if you want to start a business, for instance, yesterday or somewhere I saw in Bangalore, somebody is, bribes have to be paid, or you have to know somebody who is who there. There is a lot of
I don't know. I never.
Networking is involved. Yeah.
So I always stayed away from the government. You maintain arm distance from the government. See, back in the day, because I started my first company when I was in 2011, right? I always stayed away from the government. We never had any single deal with the government. We used to, karna to hum free mein karte the. See, the moment there's a monetary transaction with the government, that's when the whole, things start getting weird. Don't ask money from the government. They don't ask money from you. Life is chill. The moment you expect money from the government, that's when life becomes complicated. So never ask money from the government.
Apart from this, suppose a youngster just graduating out of, say, an IIT or some other university wants to go in for a startup. He has an idea. I mean, with your experience, what would you tell him?
Just do it. I mean, that's what I would do. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I have a very stupid answer. Like, just do it. See, because it's only when you do it, you figure out what the reality is. नहीं तो दूर से सब कुछ बहुत complex है बहुत अच्छा.
Why am I asking this question is that even now, I mean, now it's a little bit changing, but I observe that mostly students who graduate, they first look for a job. Unlike, say, in the West, they want to, they have some idea, they want to do something on their own. We are still going into that mindset. We are just in the transition process, I believe.
No, so, okay, I'll take a step back and forward and answer also. So, when you're doing a startup, let's say you have a certain idea, right? I want to make the glass, right? You have to figure out, okay, there are 2 reasons, so taking a step back, there are 2 reasons why I do startup. You should be very clear whether I want to make money or I'm doing it to change the world. Because they're both 2 different, very tracks of execution, right? if you're trying to move the needle of the world, you want to create impact, कि मेरे को कुछ ऐसा करना है जो किसी ने नहीं किया, right? Then you have to look at micro trends that nobody else understands today, and that is what my approach is, right? How do I validate my idea? Like when I was working on this whole technology space, I would talk to 10 people. If 9 people say this is nonsense, I said, okay, I'm on the right track. Whereas if you want to make money today, 9 people have to say yes. Yo, I would love to use your product, right? So depends. So one, you should be clear, karna kya hai, right? Like for example, today quick commerce is killing it in India. You've seen Zeptos and everybody's going to. So if you want to do something today, you please get into quick commerce. That's what the money is today. What is going to happen in 5 years? I don't know, right? Now, but let's say I am attending quick commerce. Let's say I want to now do, hey, I want to disrupt quick commerce, right? And I want to do something that will that I see quick commerce in 10 years, right? Then I would start from day zero with a humanoid-based or a robotics-based quick commerce, or a complete robotics-based dark store and a drone-based delivery, because the humans will become a costly asset, right? That is what I would start working on. But today, if you go to investors in India, robots say dark store chalaunga, drones, people say get lost, right? So depends on what kind of track and how much patience do you want to give in, right? So it's like an investor, right? Are you a patient investor or are you a intraday investor? Intraday trading versus a long-term trading, right? Two different strategies of investment. So similarly, two different strategies of taking, even figuring out what kind of problem statement to solve. That is one. Second, once you figure out the problem statement, this strategy hai, and this is one I will solve. Figure out what the kernel is, like in computer science, what the core IP is, core differentiator is. Build the differentiator yourself. Never outsource. And I think I've seen many startups fail because they outsource their IP. I've seen many entrepreneurs in many cities where they will come, hey, I'm working on this. Let's say, back in the day, e-commerce was 2012, 2013, and I would meet a lot of founders. We are using the IT company, wo mera e-commerce UI. I'm like, dude, that just doesn't make sense. You are building e-commerce, the UI has to be in your control, the engineering stack has to be in your control. Usko apne IT ko de diya. Like, a lot of people have money, right? They put in all money, they'll hire an IT institute to do it, then they all fizzle out, right? Never outsource your kernel. Like I'm sure when a newspaper started, whoever the founder is, the founder would have been a great storyteller herself or himself, right? You have to be a storyteller yourself, otherwise you can't start a newspaper company. You can't say them, I will have the best storyteller to do it for me. वो खुद का कर लेगा startup.
There will be no passion.
Passion, and then see कल को क्या होता है ना कि let's say it scales also. वो इंसान आपको बेवकूफ बना देगा, आपको पता भी नहीं चला उसने बेवकूफ बनाया आपको, है ना? तो people change. You can't let your success ride on somebody else's shoulder. Your success has to be in your hands, है ना? So the kernel has to be yours. Shell ke liye you can work with multiple players and all that. So that's one, right? So once you decide about strategy, you figure out what the IP, what the core is. You figure out how do I figure out myself, right? So here I had to figure out all, like I'm at a stage where I understand all the satellite subsystems myself, right? How does ADCs work? How does the structures work? I have an idea of everything that happens in a satellite, right? So that is important to do. The IP needs to be under control. That's second. Third, never make capital as a constraint. Never make raising capital as a goal, right? I remember again 2013, 2014, there was this, I will not name them, there was this IIT Bombay, super smart kid, right? IIT Bombay computer science topper. Either I am a angel investor types. I'm like, क्या food delivery? I'm like, are you kidding me? You are an IIT Bombay computer science topper. Why are you doing food delivery? That time Zomato, Swiggy was really happening. And the only reason he wanted to get because uska dost ne 10 दिन उठाया तो मेरे को भी ऐसा startup करके I wanted. People think raising capital is a great thing, which is absolutely a wrong thing. Today, when an MSME here or any business owner raises loan, they don't go and party around it and stuff. Loan is like a liability on your books, right? Raising VC money is a liability. It's not a milestone for a business. So never make raising capital as your goal. And again, that's why a lot of startups fizzle out. They raise capital, unko lagta hai life mein ho gaya set, and then the efficiency goes down. So yeah, at every step there's a lot of learning, right? So never make raising. So let's say you're past that. Third is, how do you build a team? Don't do kitch and share. In the beginning of the startup, shares is all you have. Never give cash to anybody, right? He might be the CEO of whatever, right? Never give cash and never take cash. If you are the founder, never take cash from your co-founders. Never ever pull in money. क्या होता है ना कि let's say we three are doing, or let's say 1, 2, 3, 5. We 5 of us are doing a startup together. आपने 5 and we all decide कि including 6. I ask you आप 1 lakh. The moment I take money from you, fights are going to happen. जिस दिन आपको, because आपको पता आपने पैसे लगा ना, you will put your foot down very strong. I would lose the control. Right? So never take money from people, especially your co-founders, your family and all that. Oh, that's a nightmare. Right? Nor give money to people. Right? In the beginning, you need to find people who are not coming in for the money, but they're coming in for you. And not just the idea also. They're coming for you. Right? You have to be this, you have to sell yourself. Idea, because idea will change. वो pivot सबका होता है, right? 2-3 बार तो pivot होता है startup का. I mean, as an ISRO, you're seeing how many pivots in life. So yeah, so every idea pivots, right? So it's important that they join you and not the idea, not the money, right? So, and it is okay. You lose a great talent, it's okay, because a lot of people have different responsibilities and all that. So it's okay. So yeah, so the last thing is, when you get a team, don't take money from them, don't give money to them in the beginning. Get team who's able to also take that cut and work for you, work with you, because they're working because of you, right? That's so yeah, there are some key learnings that I have had, and I still follow them. Like when I'm doing this also for longest time, Sharath, nobody took any money, right? Everybody used to help me, but without taking a penny. Yeah.
So, if you could, go back to when you started the company.
Take me to space now, floats. Concept.
This one.
Take me to space. Huh?
Take me to space. What would you do differently?
Given a choice, I'll never start a company. No, I'll chill in life. See, as an entrepreneur, I never advise anybody to start a company. It's a nightmare. It's like you're cutting the same branch that you're sitting on. Apne pav mein khud kuladi marna. Doing a startup is like that. But then I was telling you, once a psychopath, you're always a psychopath. Looking back, yeah, everything I want to do differently. No, to start hi nahi karne ka. But the point is,
Start karne ke baad, what would you do differently that?
Everything. See, when you look back, everything makes a different sense. But when you're in the reality, things make a very different sense. So looking back, every single thing I would do differently. Right? I did an experiment, right? Where I was, because see, people see the success, right? But then every day we take decisions. I did an experiment, okay, in a day, all the decisions I take, how many of them are actually turn out to be true and how many of them false? So guess what? Only 50 to 60% are true. Yes, 40% of decisions that I take just turn out to be wrong decisions. Right? So I have to go back and change all my 40% decisions of every single day. Right? But then at that time, given the circumstances, given the situation, did I take the most optimal? I don't know. Yes, maybe yes. So looking back, everything makes lot different sense. So yeah, looking back is a different story.
But what is your overall view of our space sector?
It is.
I mean, the startups now that are coming, somebody, Skyroot is making their own rockets. How do you see this going forward? Say in 5 to 10 years, how will we be? And in comparison to other countries, say America or China.
So I think because not just our country, right? There's a globally, if you look at the geopolitics, there's a great push for indigenization in every country. I know, like the concept of globalization is sort of fizzling out, right? Everybody's saying कि मैं खुद का बनाऊंगा. You look at India, look at any other nation or continent for that sake. Everybody's saying nationality has taken the forefront, indigenization has taken the forefront, right? So every country is doing that. As Indians, the advantage we have is the fact that we have a lot of population, we have a lot of young talent pool, and a lot of skilled labor as well, right? And that is the advantage we have, right? Yes, we do not have the advantage of a lot of empty space and whatever stuff. But our advantage is we have a lot of talent. Access to people is not a problem, right? The point is what do you do with it? Now, India is, of course, pushing for indigenization, manufacturing and all that. It takes time. It takes effort. The only problem in this sector is the liquidity is less, right? So it'll be interesting to see what kind of, and that is something I was telling you, right? Like, you should not also let the capital become a bottleneck. If you have less capital, how do you use that capital to build your IP and go build on top of it is important. Don't drop a crazy idea just because you don't have access to capital. Like, don't stop dreaming just because you don't. This is like I'm in somebody's house and then like, oh man, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah. So so that's one, right? Don't stop dreaming big. Now, what I'm excited not about the current startups, but the current students that are coming out. So if you look at again InSpace, I'll go back, right? InSpace is now creating those CanSat contest, model rocketry contest. जब हम engineering करते उसमें कोई rocket और satellite कोई बात नहीं करता था, है ना? Now these kids, like third year, fourth year kids, they are building model rockets, which goes 1 kilometer and comes down. So imagine 5 years hence when they start doing a startup, right? For us, we had to do the domain knowledge and whatever with the experience, right? Now, these guys will think very different ideas, right? So I don't know what kind of ideas will be there, but what I'm very sure is in the next 5 to 10 years, you will see fundamentally disruptive ideas coming out of India. Not the Me Too ideas. कि नहीं कि हम इसको इंडिजिनाइज करेंगे, हम उसको चीप बना देंगे, वो तो हर कंट्री कर रहा है. Disruptive ideas are very less in India yet, right? And that is going to happen more and more. Where these kids who are coming out, they will not be excited by indigenizing something. Because उसने कॉलेज में रॉकेट बना लिया अपना. कॉलेज में वो CANSAT contest होता है, where you have to build a CANSAT, it goes up in a drone, it drops and parachute opens and so on and so forth, right? So when those kids come out in the market, they will think of disruptive ideas. I think that's what I'm excited about. Wait for 5 years, you'll see a lot of disruptive ideas come out. Today, we're still trying to, somewhere down the line, we're trying to bring in optimization to what has already happened in the space industry or what is happening in the space industry. We're trying to optimize it at Indian supply chain advantage or Indian cost of manufacturing advantage that we have. But disruption is less. That will, the number of disruptive ideas will grow. And the Me Too ideas, the incremental innovations will stagnate and disruptions will open up. Like in the e-commerce space, right? Initially, it was just Flipkart, right? When 2011 ka baat kar, right? Look at what happened in the e-commerce industry. Of course, it got aggregated again. So every industry, that's what happens, right? You have starting where people start copying it, bring in a little bit of optimization. Then a lot of these disruptive ideas come in. And then the large guy comes and aggregates it and builds a large company. And that's what Flipkart did, right? Look at what happened to fintech. Look at what happened to e-commerce and the SaaS industry in general, right? Freshdesk or all those governments, IPO. A lot of innovations happened. But now they're all got aggregated. It's all aggregated into few companies. We got acquired. So yeah, so 10 years mein aggregation will happen. In the next 5 years, you'll find more disruptive ideas coming in. In the next, by the 10th year, you'll find aggregations start happening. That's when the acquisitions will happen. Today, there's no acquisition going to happen, right? Abhi, the market is very nascent. The market will become disruptive and then the market will consolidate. And then you'll have large players. Like in US, you have few large players, right? In Europe, also a few large players. In India, there's no large player yet. That'll happen in 10th year. 5th year, but it'll go through phases. Nascency, disruption. It's like a child being born, child being a teenager, then child being an adult, right? So we are in the child baby stage. Then we have to become teenager, very disruptive. Ki har cheez alag karna hai. And then we'll become an adult. So yeah, we are in the nascent stage.
So when you thought of, delving into space tech and all, in your initial stages, I think, so what helped you understand or broaden your knowledge on space tech and all?
So one thing I usually use, like I was telling him, right, when I started, I wanted to get to CRISPR, space, quantum, humanoids, right? So when I decide a field, first thing I do is I go to Google Scholar. You type in that word and you start and sort by date, sort by the year of publication, right? So my thought always has been, okay, let me at least see what people are thinking. And research, if you look at research, is always 5 years ahead of the industry. What is commercially viable, depending on this, 5 to 10 years ahead of the industry, right? So I started reading poster papers. Kis industry mein log kya soch rahe, right? And that sort of gives me a lot of ideas. Okay, this is what the research is happening. So by the time I decide, like, it gives you a lot of pointers. So this skill I learned in college, right? When I had to publish a paper, like, I want to get into theoretical computer science. Like, I had to publish some papers, right? So I would choose, let's say, I had chosen algorithm as a topic. Then instead of me breaking my head around, okay, what is the new thing I can do? First figure out what are other people thinking. Other innovators, because there are enough innovators in the world, right? Wo log kya soch rahe hain, right? Getting a tap of that, reading that gives you a lot of other ideas. So that's one step I do. Google Scholar. Second is, I use an Android phone. So I optimize, when you swipe, you have the Google News. So I start optimizing my Google News around it because I know how the personalization algorithm works. So whichever topic you're interested in, any else topic, I would say not interested, not interested, not interested, interested. Koi space guy would do that heart wala, like sign. So in 15 days, your feed only becomes space. Today, if you look at news, it's only about space. So your content consumption has to be around the topic that you want to get in. And then the problem statement appears in front of you to solve. So that's what the Google Scholar and Google News is what I try to optimize.
Let's say for a student, I mean, we know we have internet and all, right? We have AI also coming in. But there are certain things that internet doesn't teach you for a growing child, etc. I mean,
internet is a tool. You have to use the internet to teach. You have to use internet for yourself. You can't let internet teach you, right? See, as humans, people talk about AI taking jobs and all that, right? That is going to happen to humans who don't treat AI as an assistant. People, and they will get controlled by AI. Their jobs will for sure be taken. but people who adapt to the fact that how do I use the technology as an assistant to make myself better are the ones who will succeed. So as a student, you have to figure out how do I use this. This is given. It's like me. Back in the telling somebody the calculator mat use karo, right? It's a tool already available. You go ahead and use it, and don't worry about calculations anymore, right? So similarly, you know that LLMs exist, right? You know that knowledge anymore doesn't have a value, right? Access to knowledge is everybody has access to knowledge, and everybody has access to infinite knowledge. You just have to ask the question. Now what? Given that fact, what you do with it is your decision, right? And that's what students need to learn. What do you do with the knowledge rather than gathering knowledge? That's what I would definitely. If I were a student at this era, I would definitely. Oh, I would love to be a student now. Because in our time, it was access to knowledge. Such a night, library jao. We used to have a reference section. We had to figure out कौन सा book पढ़ने का है. It was a nightmare. I wish I had access to LLMs. Our life would have been so different.
One more question. So you are selling products into space you want. Will it be helpful for somebody, say a science student or somebody who is interested in cosmology? He wants to do some deep space exploration or compute data, not exploration as such, because you can't. Using this AI lab, can they do such things?
Today the answer is no. Tomorrow maybe yes. My biggest limiting factor of my business, because I'm still infra, my biggest limiting factor is also the infra. If my infra cannot look at a star and do the spectral analysis, you can't do cosmology, right? So, and that is the key. Those are the key pitfalls or key learnings I need to carry forward in my business, that taking those decisions, right? Okay, this is one satellite which has a multispectral sensor with so much resolution, right? It was a large enough market, I can monetize it. Now, the next, we are trying to do the next 10 satellites. What should be the configuration of the 10 satellites? And that is the key thing. Should I focus on cosmology? Should I focus on thermal cameras which can see in the night? Those are the key decisions that we have to take. It's literally like building a cloud business, right? Cloud business, if you look at, started at infrastructure as a service, where they used to only sell you servers. Then came platform as a service. I will give you database as a service, web servers as a service. Aapko server bhi nahi kharidna. I'll give you the functionality. Then came functionality as a service, right? So those decision making is what will make us either successful or a failure. If you take those wrong decisions, we'll fail. If you take the right decisions, like learn with the customers, grow with our customers, and build out the right infrastructure, we'll succeed. Like, for example, when Ola sort of came in, right? It was cab, but then if you look at Ola or Rapido or Uber, you have Auto, you have Ola, Rapido Normal, Rapido Premier, Rapido XL. You have so many variants, right? And that comes from the customer base, right? There are certain customers who only want XL. There are certain customers who want the affordable riding. There are certain customers who want the middle Ola riding. They don't want affordable, they don't want premium, they want something in the middle. Ola in between, Ola Play. There are certain customers who want to listen. I used to love that. I don't know why they stopped it. But Ola Play was there, where you could listen to music while riding, right? So that decision making is super important. And that will also be my limiting factor today. Like same to Ola example, right? If a customer wants to listen to music, you can't listen to music today. A customer wants to today do cosmology, you can't do through our hardware today. You cannot. We are not aiming at that market. We are very focused on the use cases. I'm saying this year, our aim is to focus on use cases that is possible with one satellite and with a camera that can be at a 9 meter per pixel and is a multispectral camera. It can only see from 550 nanometer to 830 nanometer bandwidth, wavelength. Right? So around these three things, my use cases are limited. I want to ensure that so whichever like small 100 customers are there, they are successful. The point is to make that use case successful first and then eat a bigger pie.
So this will be up in space in July.
July to the September timeframe.
What is your next idea? What do you propose to do?
So same thing, right? So if you look at today, the limiting factor of one satellite, this year we're sending to MOI-1 and MOI-2. So we have partnered with Dhruva, right? Where MOI-2 is launching in collaboration with Dhruva, right? So so Dhruva is, by the way, in Gandipet here, right? I have huge respect for Sanjay, like kick-ass guy. He was building satellites in 2012 when I was trying to get SMEs online with SMS, right? He was building satellites. India mein satellite banaunga. Crazy guy. But anyway, you have such crazy guys in Hyderabad as well. You should defend out of Sanjay. So MOI-1 and MOI-2 are going this year up. Uske baad today, and the limiting factor is, now let's say this is your area of interest of India, right? Today the revisit time, it's called the revisit time. Like the satellite will pass over the same area in next how many days? Today my revisit time is 15 days. That means as a customer, I can give you AI inferencing once in 15 days, right? But as I talk to customers, they want कि मेरे को daily चाहिए. If you're a defense customer, you want daily का account बताओ. If you're a Pepsi, you want every week account. If you're doing crop monitoring, you want every week. A certain customer can find it once in a month also. So the now next satellite thing is what's already clear is we have to keep reducing the revisit time. So our aim is that this year we want to play the game of once in 15 days. Second step will be to play the game of once in a week, then once in a day, and then the rest is history. So yeah, once in a day, I need 8 satellites. So we have to go from here to 8, where I can start offering my value prop at once in a day inferencing time.
Now you are so passionate about this technology, space, this, that. Your daughter must be dreaming of becoming a scientist herself.
Oh no, children always want to become like the parents. They always want to diverge. No, उनके लिए वो normal होता है. So I'm sure she'll become an artist, or she'll become something that I suck at, right? She'll definitely become that, which I am not good at. She's actually a great illustrator. Oh, she can illustrate anything under the roof. You tell her to do a dinosaur or a unicorn, any. She literally showed me one time, okay, Papa, this is my house. This is how my house should be, and it was so intricate. It had like a thing. It had multiple floors. It had like a bedroom, flowers and hearts, and like I'm like, dude, you're like 6 years old. So yeah, she's a great illustrator. And I suck at illustration. I am so bad at illustration. मैं एक straight line नहीं खिंचाता. So yeah, children are always opposite to their parents.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been a very interesting discussion.
No, same, I loved it. The informal setting is really good.
It was a pleasure talking.